What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Grand Scheme. This is Grand Kahonu here. After a long weekend of grinding arena, I managed to break into the top 800 and claim a new 4-star Nebula for my roster. Now this was cutting it extremely close. I scored 14.52 million points and only managed to get number 780 on the leaderboard. Now this was much closer than I would have liked to have been. I almost stopped grinding at 14.25 million, but decided at the last minute to go ahead and run through my 5 stars again, and I'm so glad that I did. As a matter of fact, Marvel True Coast posted on their Facebook page an image of the summoner who placed 806 and missed the cutoff. That person put up 14.4 million points, and so as you can see, the difference between my place at 780 and this person's place at 806 is a measly 104,000 points. This is again too close for comfort. If I had put all of that time in and spent my entire weekend grinding for this champion and put up over 14 million points and then ended up not making the cut, I'm not sure that I would continue playing the game. I would probably cry myself to sleep at night for at least a few nights. Anyway, we did get Nebula. I'm happy that we got her, and I've had a chance to play around with her and work with her special attacks and her abilities, and I've got a feel for this character, so I wanted to put a video together to showcase her for you and point out some things that she does really well and maybe some things that she doesn't do quite as well as we anticipated. And so let's take a look at Nebula, beginning with her ability descriptions. Now my Nebula is at a rank 3 level 30, and she's probably going to stay there for a while, at least until after I get Yondu and can compare the champions and determine which one is worthy of the Tier 4 class catalysts and Tier 4 basic catalysts. You'll also notice that my Nebula is not awakened. That is simply because I don't have an awakening gem for her, and even if I did, I'm not sure that I'd use it on her, because her signature ability is really related to this first passive ability listed here. It says Nebula starts the fight with 2 self-repair charges that activate when the opponent deals more than 110% of their attack in a single hit, repairing the damage taken over 5 seconds. If stunned during her self-repair, the repair stops. And so if you get hit with a heavy attack, a special attack, or a medium attack that lands a critical hit, possibly even a light attack that is critical, but I'm not sure about that. But on these others, if you get hit by those and the damage taken exceeds 110% of your opponent's base attack, then she will convert one of those self-repair charges into regeneration or a self-repair. Now, this is interrupted or stopped if she gets stunned, just like with Ultron. Now, the reason I say I probably wouldn't use a signature stone on her, or rather an awakening gem on her, is because if you are a skilled fighter and you're not prone to taking heavy hits or getting hit by special attacks, then 2 self-repair charges are usually going to be sufficient to get you through a fight. You're not going to regenerate if you're just taking a little damage at a time from blocking attacks. And so these really are not based or useful for that. She does not regenerate like champions such as Wolverine, or Scarlet Witch, who can just regenerate at any time during the fight, or Doctor Strange, who can regenerate under certain conditions throughout the fight. Her regeneration is based on damage taken, and it has to exceed that 110%. And so if you are a fighter who is going to get hit a lot, then your signature ability would probably come in very useful. It would probably also make her a very good defender in an alliance war, because your attacker is going to be more likely to use special attacks against her, and when they do that and hit her with that attack, it's going to do more damage than the 110%, and she will repair it. But as far as attack, I don't see that her signature ability is going to be very useful. The second passive ability there is the ability of robots, the ability accuracy of robots is reduced by 20% per electroshock charge, and we'll talk about those electroshock charges in a minute. But this is a promising ability, and yet it's a very limited ability, so it's not something that really makes her stand out as a champion that you want just specifically for this ability. The reason for that is that there are only 5 robots in the contest. There are 2 Ultrons, there are 2 Visions, and there is Nebula. And 2 of those 5 are very rare. Now, if you are using Nebula to fight against Ultron, for example, Age of Ultron, then if you can maintain 5 electroshock charges, which is not at all difficult to do, then theoretically Ultron will not armor up, he will not evade, and he will not self-repair. If you're fighting Vision, he will not power gain. He will not, the OG Vision will not have that automatic power gain. The Vision Age of Ultron will not be able to power drain, and so you'll be taking very little damage in those fights because his special attacks only damage if he can drain your power. And so she has a lot of promise when fighting those kind of opponents. But again, that's a very limited pool. The third passive ability here is that she is a robot, and therefore she is immune to poison and bleed. Now, I've seen people comment that she's not fully robot, so this doesn't really make sense because she has organs, but it is what it is, and I won't complain about it. This will make her very valuable for people who like to run suicides, especially. Now, Nebula's active abilities is really where she gets a little complicated, and it's going to take a little bit of practice for you to get comfortable with her and to use her effectively. Here, basically, she has 2 abilities. The first is to generate passive electroshock charges on herself as she's holding block. She'll generate 1 electroshock charge for every 9/10 of a second that she holds the block, and she can store up to 20 electroshock charges. Her second ability is to convert those electroshock charges to shock debuffs on her opponent by means of a well-timed block. Now, what does this mean? Well, typically it means that you're going to parry your opponent. They can even be stun immune opponents as long as you get the parry there. It will convert those. Now, I did not remove my parry mastery, but I think that because they use this language, her ability does not actually depend on you having the parry mastery. In other words, if you block an attack at the point at which it would be a parry if you had the parry mastery, then you will still convert those electroshock charges to shock debuffs. Now, each of these shock debuffs with my rank 3 level 30 Nebula with my mastery setup, each of these shock debuffs do 277.6 energy damage over 6 seconds. Now, for example, if you have 10 electroshock charges on yourself and you convert those to shock debuffs on your opponent, then that's going to be 2,776 damage over 6 seconds, and that does add up. Now, I want to point out the heavy attack here, that you can also place shock debuffs on your opponents by using a heavy attack. These are really not where you want to focus because these are only 1 at a time and they do not last very long. The 6 seconds is not a very long time. I think what this is going to really, where this is really going to benefit is if you can parry your opponent and then follow that parry immediately by a heavy attack to add just 1 more shock debuff before you lead into your specials. Now, the special attacks is where the magic happens. Depending on how many shock debuffs you have placed on your opponent, this will determine how effective your special attacks are. On her first special attack, she can inflict Power Lock and Power Drain. And for each shock debuff you've placed, the Power Lock will last 1 second, and the Power Drain will deplete 3.5% of the target's max power. So again, if we were to convert 10 electroshock charges to 10 shock debuffs, then we could Power Lock the opponent for 10 seconds and deplete 35% or just over 1 bar of the opponent's power. So I have a few videos here to show you of Nebula using her first special and what that looks like. Check it out. Now I was curious, I wanted to make sure that this power lock on her first special actually added up to the total number of shocks that she landed on her opponent. So here, with Winter Soldier, we actually landed 12 shocks with our block, and then converted with our first special to activate the power lock on the first hit of the special. You see our charges wear off there about 6 seconds in, which is according to the description. And then the power lock should wear off at 12, but it actually continues to go through 14 seconds. And so we apparently got a few extra seconds on this power lock than what her ability description says it should be. I wanted to verify this and see if maybe this is just a fluke, and so we tried it again. And this time we had 16 shocks active on Nebula, and we converted it to shocks on Winter Soldier and used a first special to convert that to power lock. 6 seconds in, the shocks wear off, and the power lock continues to run. And we should be just about out here at 14 seconds, but once again, we have an extra 2 seconds on the clock. Now, later on I'll show you a video where the first special does actually correspond with the shocks that she places on her opponent, but at least in these two instances we got some extra time out of that power lock, and this is going to be helpful in some scenarios, especially since it is very difficult to maintain this for any length of time. I just can't see anybody playing Nebula in a constant power lock state like you might with Magic. It takes too long to build up the charges, and they just don't last long enough. Now, Nebula's second special, I think, is her biggest asset as a champion. She is able to double the amount of shock debuffs on the opponent when she lands her second special, but the debuffs that she adds are not the same as the debuffs that she multiplies. So in other words, if you manage to get up to 20 debuffs, 20 shocks by converting her electroshock charges to shocks, each of those shocks on the opponent lasts 6 seconds, and again, for my champion, 277.6 energy damage. Now when she doubles those, the additional 20 that she adds are going to last only 3 seconds, so they're going to time out at the same time as the initial 20, because she will activate this or double this on the last hit of her second special, which happens to be 3 seconds in. And so they last 3 seconds and they deal 555.2 energy damage. And so the damage potential here is enormous for Nebula by converting these shock charges, or the electrostatic shock charges, to shocks, and then doubling them, increasing the damage output with her second special. Check it out. Now, as I said, when you double the shocks, it does not add 3 seconds to the total length of a shock. Rather, the shocks that are doubled are only 3 seconds long, and they start with that last hit right there. And since the first part of her special takes about 3 seconds, the total amount of time for all of the shocks wears off altogether right at just over 6 seconds. Now, there's something else that I want to show you here as well. I want to slow down as we do this second special here, and that is both the damage output and the regeneration that Nebula triggers, since we did take a heavy attack right before activating this special attack. Okay, so I've slowed this down. You can see we've doubled the shocks from 17 to 34. We're doing 3,450 damage per tick on those shocks for a total of 20,700 damage, plus whatever damage she's done with the physical attacks here. So this is nothing to sneeze at for a rank 3 level 34 star. That is significant damage. And if we had had 20 charges on her instead of the 17, of course that would have been even higher. We started this Special 2 by taking a heavy attack from Winter Soldier, and when he hit Nebula he dealt 1,644 damage, but you can see that it triggered her regeneration since it did more than 110% of his base attack, and over the course of 6 seconds she gains all of that back plus some because of the recovery mastery. She lost 1,644 in health and gained back 2,079. Now again, this is not something that you want to do intentionally to try to heal her because that difference just is not enough. But it is an excellent safeguard, and with recovery you get a little added bonus on top of it. Now, I did not find Nebula's third special to be quite as effective as her first special and second special. Here it says that she overcharges her power generator for 10 seconds, inflicting shock when in contact with the opponent, dealing 277.6 energy damage over 3 seconds. And so the same amount of damage that she causes by her heavy attacks and by her well-timed blocks, but these are only 3-second shocks that she inflicts with her special 3. The nice thing here is that this is any type of contact that she makes with her opponent, so it can be offensive and it can be defensive contact that will trigger these shocks on her opponent. So check out her third special here. Alright, so there you saw we converted 20 electroshock charges to shock debuffs on Winter Soldier, and then activated a third special so that we could, as long as we were hitting him, continue to add shock charges to the opponent. I think we got up to about 24 there. Now this got me thinking, what if we could chain together the special attacks? What if we could get 20 shocks on the opponent, double them with a second special, and then get back to a first special and power lock them for 30 or 40 seconds? Could we do that? Or perhaps we could use a third special to have the ability to add shocks just by hitting the opponent or being hit, and then by means of a well-timed block put 20 additional charges on the opponent and power lock them that way. Either way, the potential for a very long power lock is there. And so I attempted this dozens of times, and unfortunately most of my attempts ended in failure. I should note that I used a power gain team of a 3 and a 4-star Daredevil and 4-star Black Widow and Elektra for a 23% power gain. Here is one example where I build up to almost 3 bars of power and then transfer 15 shock charges to Winter Soldier, double them with a second special, and then I should be able to get to the first special with 1 hit and power lock. But I used 2 hits and the charges ran out. So the potential is there for that to happen, but I just couldn't accomplish it from the second special to the first special. Now we also have the possibility of perhaps doing a third special to a first special, and I tried and failed there quite a bit as well. And so here we have 20 shocks build up, the electroshock charges. I'm going to use a third special to be able to inflict shocks on Winter Soldier just by hitting him. And I accidentally parried him there, and so transferred all 20 over, and by the time I get back to the first special, those 20 have expired. So again, we have another fail. But amid the many, many failed attempts to chain together the special attacks, I was successful one time in chaining together a third special and a first special against Winter Soldier. And so here I've activated my third special. I have 20 electroshock charges already active, and I get lucky because he leads off with his second special, and that pushes my power meter up and enables me to get back to my first special here after I've parried him and power lock him just before those shock debuffs wear off. Now at this point, it might be possible to parry and land some shock charges on him by heavy attacks, or I could probably transfer these 6 or 7 here and use another first special and thereby extend this power lock to maybe 30 seconds, 32 seconds or so. For me though, I don't think that this is a feasible way or a realistic way to play with Nebula. It just takes too much time to build up the charges. There's too much blocking going on to build up the charges to power lock, and not enough attack. And so in a timed fight like Alliance War or Alliance Quest, if you spend all of your time building up the electroshock charges to try to power lock an opponent, you're going to lose ground and you're not going to be able to deal enough damage. So to summarize, I think Nebula is a very strong champion. She's a lot of fun to play with, and she has potential for just about every aspect of the game. The one thing that I was disappointed with was her power lock. Now, she does have the potential to power lock for a pretty long period of time, but in doing so, she's sacrificing her ability to attack the opponent. And for this reason, I do not think she is going to be the answer for the Mystics in Alliance War. She's not going to be the counter for the power gain nodes or the Hyperions that you run into. She does, however, have the potential to be a great boss killer both in Alliance War and Alliance Quest because of her second special. And it's there that I would encourage players to focus and to maximize on her abilities. Focus on charging those electroshock charges, converting them to shocks, and then doubling them with your second special, and then watch your opponent's health meter fall. I've had a lot of fun making this video, and I hope that you get a lot of help out of it. If you do, please like the video, share it, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, this is Grand Kahonu, smoking it down. We'll catch you later.